So in this film I wanted to really show you the power of a smart object, and the image we're looking at here is a real kind of cartoon effect. Basically the image has gone through several steps to create the kind of the cartoony, including several levels of liquefying. We'll touch on the liquefying at the end and things really, but basically I want to show you the real power. So really what we've got here is an image that is basically a smart object, and the smart object means that it can have a memory of things done before. So it means that I can quickly replace this image on itself, and it'll another image will take on all the characteristics if it can see similarities. What do I mean by that? Okay, so if I double click onto the smart object layer here, the smart object is designated by this little kind of marker in the bottom right hand corner of a layer. Double click it and that opens up another layer. So if I just put these side by side for a minute, if I go to arrange and I go to vertical, we can see that basically the image on the right was the one we looked at first. This is the one that's gone through the work, and then the image on the left hand side is the original file. So this was the smart object file before we began to do all the work with it. Now if I turn this to black and white or whatever I would do, if I save that file, it makes the adjustments on the other side. Okay, really what I want to show you is this. Okay, so if we just grab another image and we drag it on top of the smart object, let's just make it bigger so it fits the square. It doesn't have to, I think it will look better. And what we're now going to do is just save this file. Okay, I'm not going to do anything else to it. So in other words, just go into File and Save, or Control S, as you can see. Now what we're doing is over saving the master document. Even though I've left that new layer as a smart object, it really doesn't need to be. What's going on now is basically Photoshop is going through step by step of the original adjustments that we can see on the right hand side document. So in other words, what it's doing, it's going through two layers of liquefy on the eyes and the face shaping. Then it's going through a process to give it the kind of the diffusion. And we run through several steps of diffusion, then a surface blur, a noise reduction, a sharpening, a high pass. But really what we can see here is that is a really fast way to actually work with images and to actually create the same effect. So remember, all I did was basically on this left hand image, I dropped on top of that this new image you can see here on the right hand side, and then basically I saved it. Because this is the master, as it were, it then actually is a part of this main funky cartoon master document. Now I reduced down the size to about 2500 just to make it a little bit quicker for you. I'm not working on the quickest of PCs here, and if I was using the full 5,500 plus pixel, it would just take that a little bit longer. So that's basically the power of what we're seeing. To actually go to the liquefying kind of element, basically what we were doing is just open up a document. So this is opening up the document that we just overlaid on the left hand side. The first thing that I did was Control J to duplicate the layer. Then we basically right clicked the side of the grey of the layer, converted that to a smart object. Now this is where the power was, because it's going to remember everything that we're doing. Then I went through the filter and liquefy. And then we were making use for the animation, just actually the liquefying of the kind of the facial features. First of all, just click in between the two eyes here on the top right hand side. There's a little link, and if I now just push that up to 100%, the eyes will increase. Then if I do the same with the eye height and most of the eye width as well, at the same point I'm going to come down and actually just make the face width a little bit more kind of character, shrink the forehead down a touch, chin height can either go up or down, depends on what you want. And then the jawline in its shape is just thinning out. So there's the first thing that we're going to do. Obviously I can still change the smile. I can make it bigger. I can increase the upper lip, the lower lip, up and down, whichever you want to do. So if you really want to actually kind of have this kind of a big effect, a bit of a laugh, we could even just actually supply this to a client as a bit of a kind of a Mickey take, couldn't we, before they're coming in to see the photographs and things, and perhaps it's a funny share. So there's the first thing that we did on the left, but I want to add another liquefy. Now the reason I turned it into the smart object, or the smart layer here, was so I could actually change and go backwards to any of these things by just double clicking into the filter name itself. Let's go do it again. So filter, liquefy. This time though, I'm just going to make the eyes just that little bit bigger. So in other words, double clicking in the middle again, increasing that size once more, going to press OK, and that's just going to give it that real big eyes kind of caricature. What else are we going to do? So now we're going to go and add in some real diffusion to get rid of the kind of the sharpness like a true cartoon would be. So I'm just going to go up into the filter, stylize, and we're going to go into diffuse. And this is where we want to check that the anisotropic is selected. Going to press OK. Again, it's working quite a big chunky file here in a minute because I forgot to close the other one down in the background. I might do that in fact. Let me just close this one. And we're just going to close the other master file as well. So we can just work on here. Okay, so you can see the diffuse. We're going to do it again. So filter, once more. Stylize, diffuse. Clicking on the anisotropic, pressing OK again. So this was a 3840 pixel high image before we began. It's still that, and there's a lot going on here, as you can see. Next thing, let's give it some more blur. So we're going to go into filter, and we're going to come into blur and into surface blur. And again, it's just down to taste really. Just find a smooth in. These settings I found a while back on some kind of demonstration. I thought they were pretty good. So 16 and 7. I think it really does depend on your size of pixel as well with it, how it all kind of works together. But it's right for me. Then we're going to go through filter, noise, and reduce noise. Once more, just actually from some settings, we've got 10, 10, 0, 0, pressing OK. Then we're going to go into a filter, a sharpen, and a smart sharpen. And here it's 1753 and no noise reduction as far as reducing the noise. I quite like to push this up between 3 and 3.5, but again that's personal. But if you're making a master, you need to actually get it right as an overall, and the 3 seems to work well. So you can start to see it's beginning to really get quite blurred within itself now, and we need to actually bring some sharpness back. In fact, I just made a little bit of a mistake there. I forgot to actually set it to the lens blur, so let's just step backwards in history for a minute. So that gets rid of the the smart sharpening down here, and then we're just going to go to filter, sharpen, and back into that smart sharpen again. I can't remember if I'd set it to the lens blur. I had, in fact, so that's okay. I could have actually kept it as it was. What I was on about was set in this part here, okay? So I want the lens blur, pressing OK. Okay. And then we're going to just go into filter, other, and then we're going to sharpen with a high pass. And just going to run about 3s, okay? But we need to adjust its blend mode. To do that, we need to double click on this little toggle on the layer, on the filter I should say, and then basically it's going to render in the mesh. It's going to give me an option now of how do I want to actually change its blend mode. But I've got to wait for it to do its job first. So once the toggle box comes up, I just need to turn the overlay, sorry, the normal mode into overlay. Just going to press OK then. And that's done its job. Obviously it depends if you want to actually reduce the opacity down or not. I don't. A couple little things then to end. It really depends on if you want to punch up the color just a little bit more. I do. So I'm just going to go into vibrancy and then just push it up just a little bit more, increase the saturation a touch. And I'm just going to click on the little toggle here to actually adjust the layers below. And I'm pretty much done. We can do other effects, as I said, like brightness or contrast even more, but because this is going to be adjusted across other images, I don't really need to put it in place. But if you felt that, well, it's worth building it into the master, then of course you could be doing that without any trouble. So then once we're happy with that, we pretty much have the image that we've just set out there. Now, as I've said, I would actually save this now as a master, so I can actually just adjust it. So if we just go File, Save As, and for now I'll just put it into the image demos, and we'll just go into Cartoon, Liquefy, Master. And I put full on the end, so that means this is the full resolution, so I'm not basically making it into a smaller resolution first. So basically done its job, but just to prove its point and how it works, if remember we double click onto this image, it opens up the original. This is the original. Let's see it again. If we arrange, we put the two side by side, okay, we can see here that this is the original file on the left. This is the one we're going to affect. If we were confused about where we are exactly, if I just touch this image, okay, whilst we're working on this left-hand image, it won't come live. So this is the image that we want to do. So I want to drop another photograph on. I didn't prepare myself for that. 1 second. Let's go back into that images for demo. That could be quite funny. Let's drop that one in. JPEG, I haven't got a JPEG there of that image a minute. Okay, so I'll drop it on. It'll have to go through the raw process first. I'll just open it up straight away. Just got to make sure that it basically, wrong button. Remember, in Photoshop now you don't need to actually hold the shift key anymore. I still do it through habit for donkey's years of doing it, almost 20 years. Now you can see, because I've constrained it or enlarged it or whatever it would be, it's come in as a smart object. It's notified us that on the thumbnail by that little icon at the bottom right hand side. But just to prove the point, we don't need that to be a smart object to do what we're going to do. All I need to do here is File, Save. As soon as I start to save over this image, it's now going to go through the process of updating the mesh. Now the mesh data is to do with the liquefy tool. So in other words, it's going through the same process as I manually did with the original image, and then it's going through it again. So that's why the second mesh came up again. The mesh is what Photoshop and the liquefy tool together, it kind of builds it into the image. It's kind of a map of all small little squares, and when we're enlarging the eyes, enlarging the lips and so on, it's basically looking for those same things on the next image. Obviously if it was a full length image, it's not going to work as well, but because we're working in close-up or 3/4 length, it really works quite well. But as you can see here, there's a real chunk of information going on within Photoshop, but it's going to do something very, very clever for us, and let's not forget that. And that's it. So that's how we can use the likes of a smart object file to get really, really wacky and actually have a little bit of fun with it as well. Hope you enjoy the film. Take care.